All right, welcome back, you guys. Here we are for another episode of CEO Downloads. This is all about the things that have come up this week that are going on, the vibes we're getting, all of that, and then coming and bringing it to you so that you can get some thoughts going, get the creativity happening, and take action. So today we are talking about your superpowers and all the things that go around what those are and creating them and activating them and getting them into your business. So let's just dive right in.
All right, so just to share a high level of where we'll be going today, there's three main things. One is addressing your story. What is your backstory? We all have a backstory.
Yeah.
The second one is more about doing versus being, which we'll elaborate on as well.
Yeah.
And then the third one is this was an exciting one that came to us in the conference we were in yesterday is what do we stand for?
Mhm.
Right? So
Uh,
we're gonna elaborate on these, but also we're gonna stay till the end because we're gonna provide you with some fun homework to play around with for the next week, and we want to hear from you guys.
yeah.
What's coming up? What are you discovering about yourself and your business? And how does that connect? How do those two things connect? And what are you excited about sharing out in your brand, out in your socials and your external marketing? So, and maybe even the way you deliver. So, yeah, let's kick this off. Just to set a bit of context, this week we hosted one of our suburban co-working retreats.
Yeah.
Right after that on that was Thursday. Right after that on Friday, you and I and some colleagues spent most of the day in Toronto at a conference where a lot of entrepreneurs were ranging from six, seven, eight figures. Like there's a lot of different like professional speakers
Yeah.
and lots of speed networking connections made and whatnot. So there's a few golden nuggets we pulled away from that, and part of our intention to going to this event as you know, when we go to these, quite often they're quite overwhelming because you're meeting a lot of new people, you're taking in a lot of information, it's ex inspiring a lot of different things in you, but you can go home completely overwhelmed and going, what did I accomplish? Right. So for us, I would say one of the, a couple of main things we wanted to accomplish at this event was making more connections. So expanding our network effectively with some key people that we could probably do work with, refer with, whatever it is. And secondly, coming away, it's something we haven't heard before, or haven't learned before, or needed to be reminded of again, that we haven't been reminded of for quite some time. So that I believe was accomplished, other than just having some fun as well. But yeah, let's get into it. So the first one is about what is your story, and what I'll just sort of share to kick off the conversation is not just your story in like it all started in 1974 in Burlington. Like that, like the details don't really matter. If you were to look at a high level of your story, you're holding the book of your life, or someone's holding the book of your life, what would be the essence of that story? Um, Even if you're narrowed down to like maybe even three words or even one word, right? Um, as you're to go like deeper into that story, like what chapter or what part of the story where would you start, right? I've noticed this when I've been interviewed on podcasts. They ask me to tell my story, and I tend to start from a completely different chapter every time, depending
Yeah.
on the audience, right? So yeah, Jody, what comes up for you when we talk about your story?
Yeah, this one's an interesting one because I think, at least for me, the first reaction is I don't really have one.
Yeah.
It's like, what is my story? It's not that interesting. Like, I don't really have much to say. And then I start thinking, well, actually, there's this thing that happened and that thing that happened and all the things that happened, right? And so I think this is actually such an important piece of your business and your brand that you want to use all the time too, like in your posting and in your workshops and all of that stuff, because people want to hear the specifics, right? So, which is sort of a different way of looking at it. Like for you, when you first started, you said like the details don't matter. And you're right in that, like, it's the essence of it. It's what you bring. It's how you're showing up because of it. It's like all that stuff where the details don't matter. And then it's in the delivery and the post and maybe a workshop where people really want to hear the exact story. So it can kind of be both, right?
Yeah.
Which is cool. Um, I think for me, the story that comes up, my like entrepreneur story, is really about how I had to sell my condo, or I should say I chose to sell my condo. Back in 2015, I had been let go from my job in 2013, and I had to figure myself out and start my business and do all the things. It is not easy to get a job at that type of a level in a new place, especially when you don't have one to start with. So I was about a year and a half into my entrepreneurial sort of journey. And I had this condo that I owned by myself that I had bought with my own money and did all the things and, you know, had that sort of under my belt. And then it was, a couple of years in, I'm going, well, I either need to go and get the job, or if I really want to do this entrepreneurial thing, then I need to sell my condo. And there was some pretty big debt that went with that. And I made the decision. I went to my parents' house and I said, do you think I can move into the basement apartment? So luckily my parents do have that in their house. It's not separated, but it is a full like kitchen and everything in the basement. And at 35 years old, I asked them if I could move home. And they said yes. And so I sold my condo and I paid off all of my debt and I moved into my parents' house. And I actually used the money because I was making some money, just not enough. And I used the money to invest in a coach at that time, and I quadrupled my revenue the following year. So that I would say is the like core of my entrepreneurial story.
Yeah. I kind of
What about yours?
listening to you share that, all these all these flashes of chapters in my story started
Right?
coming up. And I wrote down some words here just to summarize, and I could give examples, but I think to summarize the cycling, the reoccurring theme inside my story, there's there seems to be a reoccurring the beginning of it is always a reoccurring experience of the need for self-preservation.
Mm,
That's the first thing. If that was the first phase of the process, self-preservation going into high school, being a small athlete, I guess I got to lift some weights and get stronger, faster, bigger so I can compete with bigger athletes. That's how I started my weight training journey,
right.
right?
Yeah.
Self-preservation, getting injured after powerlifting, trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. Like, what am I going to do? I can't even train clients in a sling, and I have no life. I have no savings,
Yeah.
all these things, self-preservation spinning me into another spiritual path, right? So self-preservation seems to be part of the theme of initiating a new transformation that I go through in
Yeah.
this story of Brian, right? Then self-preservation, then comes courage, the courage to take action in some way, like move towards it in some way, whether get up, but it's like you're getting, when I was in college, it was, Brian, just get up earlier and get to school earlier and hold the textbook in your hand. Start with that, right?
Yeah.
And just be ahead of things, like be aware of things, right? Wake up to what is required to meet the standards so you can pass, right?
Yeah.
So, um, courage to take action. And then the third thing that comes up for me is resourcefulness. When you put yourself in a
Great one.
situation, or when I had put myself in a situation where now I'm in the trenches, I'm doing the things, I'm getting my hands dirty, I'm
Yeah.
in action, I have to look around and access more resources, more time with the Profit School to learn stress testing, more, create a like a study group with my friends, to leverage our resources there, right?
Yeah.
So, and in business, like resources, what access to funding do I have? What access to amazing network that I have, or people more experienced and more successful in my area for years and years and years, like tapping into those resources so I can learn what I need to learn, gain advantage of or leverage of the things that are available to me to catapult myself into the new upgrade level, right? Um,
Yeah.
if I had a summer, and I mentioned too, like if you can get it to a single word, for some reason the word redemption comes up for me.
Mm.
Um, and a phrase being like making all of it meaning all the shit I had to go through, making all of it worth it in the end.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
in just that little moment when you were sharing your piece, all of this stuff was just flooding to me. And this is what we're asking of the listeners today is take a snapshot of your story and kind of review all the different cycles and chapters that are happening. And
Yeah.
like, what is the theme? What is the grand sort of like essence of that story? Because that's what you're gonna connect with people. That's what's gonna share your passion. It opens up so many more exciting avenues of content.
It makes you feel
Yeah,
relatable, right?
yeah, completely, completely. Which spins
Yeah.
us into the second theme is it's not what you're doing that they relate to. And
Mm.
and the second part of that phrase is it's not what you're doing, it's that they relate to. It's 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 who you're being and how you're showing up, and it relates to your story,
Yeah.
right? So the question is like, what is your unique method of delivering your product or service? So there's like millions of personal trainers out there, for example, but they all have their own unique method of delivering and
Yeah.
showing up, right? um who are you being when you're showing up? Like I asked my staff when I managed a team at the club was, for the 5 a.m. shift where you got to be at work ready to go to open the doors at 4:45 a.m. And there's a lineup of usually people 80 years old plus waiting to come in. I don't know why they get up so early, come to the gym because they don't have to work anymore, but you need to be on like 100% of what you have to bring. You need to show up
Mhm.
strong at that hour. What
Yeah.
do you need the night before and everything leading up to that moment? What do you
Yeah.
need to show up at your best, right? So, all of that is related to being and how you're showing up and how you're preparing yourself and setting yourself up for success. So, as far as doing and relating, what comes up for you here?
I think it just comes back to the stuff we've continuously been talking about in terms of being, right? It's like really think about how you would be being and what you would be, acting like if you were already where you wanted to be, right? And I think when we think forward like that and we show up in that, 3.0 version of ourselves like you always say,
Mhm.
I think that is what people look to and go, I want to be like that, right? I want to do that. I want to have what you have. I want to move forward in that way, right? So I just think that this is a continuous conversation about being, and it's where the magic happens. It's where we step out of the comfort zone. It's where we start acting as if. It's where we build confidence. It's where we start making decisions from that place of the 3.0 self and not from where we are now, right? So I think that all, just comes through here. And there's just like I could say it over and over again, but this is the biggest thing that I worked on to help change my mindset and to finally hit six figures was this being
Mhm.
and this, getting rid of limiting beliefs, thinking about the new empowering ones. And it's like it feels like no matter what our topic is every week, this always seems to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Every time it always comes in.
Oh yeah. And it's the piece that is often conveniently overlooked, right? Because
Totally.
we all
It's
remember,
hard.
yeah, we all remember when The Secret came out. So Law of
Yes.
Attraction became mainstream. It was promoted by Oprah and the whole thing, right? But what didn't happen, for most people when they saw The Secret? Like they got super excited. They realized, oh, what I think becomes things and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But it's in the movie, but it's
Yeah.
lost on people that the way to align with the dream is in the way you're being. And a
Yeah.
lot of it is related to experiences you want to have and what it feels like in your
Yeah.
body to experience those. That's an example of how you can
Yeah.
access being, right? Um,
Yeah.
in my space, it's also making sure your body's your life force, you're getting enough sleep and you're hydrating yourself and taking care of
Your
yourself in a way
habits.
so that
Yeah.
you're healthy and vibrant and vital so you
Yeah.
can shift your way of being from
Yeah.
one situation to the next, right? And
Yeah.
being self-aware, right? So, um,
Stay awake, right?
yeah, staying awake. And also, like, I don't know how true this is or not, but I have a friend of mine who was also one of my business coaches as well, said, in the book Think and Grow Rich, um, he says, they took some chapters out of that book. I go, really? He goes, yeah, they took out the chapters on actually how to apply the stuff. And
Yeah.
and it was about way of being,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
I don't know how true that is, but it sounds interesting to share. But it is, that's a part that gets missed on a lot of us is
yeah.
who am I being right now? Right?
Yeah. I I think at least for me, the part where it was lost on me all this time, I don't want to spend too much longer on this, but
Mhm.
the part that was lost on me was like I didn't really understand how thinking something turned into the result until I learned from Laura Jackson, who's the mindset coach inside the Time Freedom Club. I learned a framework from her it's called CTFAR. Maybe that's not the name of it, but those are the acronym for it. And it's circumstances which create your thoughts,
Mhm.
CT, which create your feelings, right? Which create your actions, which create your results. And so when I finally saw that, and I could see how it went from thinking to results, and I could see how when you think one thing, like if you're in a launch and you're trying to promote something and you think that it's not going to work out, you start to hold back, you start to not do things, you start to not put in as much effort, you start to get all in your head, right? You do all these things. Those are the actions, like the thoughts that create the feelings that create the actions,
Yeah.
and therefore the results, which end up being maybe nothing or not as good as they would have been had you initiated the thought of maybe it doesn't look like it's working out right now, but it's going to.
Yeah.
So the actions I'm taking are this, and this to make it move.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I started to understand that, which I didn't get from watching The Secret 20 whatever years ago,
Yeah.
if I would have understood why thinking creates my results, that would have been a completely different story.
Yeah, because that's like how you're selecting, and what one thing I would share too, as far as what you're talking about is that what's difficult, the difficult part of being is that the old way of being is already installed and it's
Yeah.
running on autopilot unless you are changing the way you're being through your selected thoughts, actions, behaviors, whatever it is that you're doing that's going to represent or show up differently than what your old version of you shows up as.
Yeah.
So just expect that the old way of being is just going to be running on a default.
Yeah. Which
Un
means we have to put extra effort in. It has to be
Yeah,
intentional, which is why it's so hard.
you got to strengthen the muscle and
Yeah.
then begin to overpower it. So the new way of being is now your way of being,
Yes.
right? As you move to the next stage. And the old way of being is an old story that you sometimes tell sometimes when it's valuable,
Yeah.
right? Otherwise, you just let it go, right?
Yeah.
Ego death, they call it as well, right?
Yeah.
So, great. So moving to the third one is, again, these blend nicely one into the other. Is
Yeah.
one is the what do you stand for? This is a tricky one for me. When I heard this yesterday, the speaker spoke about it, and she would, they do the long pauses too, these speakers, right? What do you stand for, right? So, um, and I'll spin it to you in a second on this one, but I feel like it's one of those things like, well, like, she says like, what is the hill that you're going to die on?
Yeah.
Within, say, the context of what you're trying to do in your business, because that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
The people you're trying to help, like, what are you standing for, and what will you absolutely not allow in this arena of your life, right? So,
Yeah.
what comes up for you in this particular theme?
Yeah. So there are two things that are in some ways separate, in some ways go together. So for me, when she was telling us a story and she was telling us how one of her values was justice, and she told us this story about how she saw something that wasn't appropriate going on and she broke up this like a fight, basically. And then she just said, not on my watch. And that sentence for me was like, what is not on my watch is people not moving forward and getting shit done. Because I know deep inside my like core that when people have clarity and confidence and they actually do the work, they are going to see results. And, you know, it is true that in the coaching industry, the percentage of people who get results in programs and courses and whatever is extremely low, like 5% or less across the board. I'm sure there are people who are more, whatever, but the overall general is about 5%. And that's just something that I don't want for my people, right? I want people to get results. I
Mhm.
want them to see the fruits of their labor. And in order to make that happen, we know that the confidence, the clarity, the way they are feeling, right, all affect how they actually do the work.
Mhm.
And if those things aren't in place, the work doesn't get done, or it doesn't get done the way that it should, or in the time frame that it should. And then the results either don't come or take way too long.
Yeah.
So for me, the not on my watch is like, you are not going to not get work done on my watch,
Yeah.
and the right work, so that
Yeah.
we can get you results, because that is actually the end of it, is the you're not going to not get results.
Yeah.
We want you to get results.
I think a huge inspiration for how we have like how we have BTC set up, like the co-working
Yeah.
space especially, is what we're looking to provide and deliver on is creating the environment that is conducive to you easily being able to get work done.
Yes.
Because we understand that we've all been there. We understand that left to our own devices, and fears and emotions and stuff like that, we could easily spend days trying to complete something that actually only takes a half an hour,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
Which is painful for everyone, right? So what we're trying to create, it's not like, you're gonna sit down and you're a hunker down and not on my watch, you're gonna do work, whether you like it or not. It's not
Yeah.
that.
No.
That's not where we're coming from. We're gonna provide you with everything you need
Yeah.
to get it done and get it done easily and actually maybe even have some fun doing it.
Yeah.
So we can move on to the other things so we have
Yeah.
balance in our life, right?
Yeah.
And it's the time freedom concept, right? So
Yeah.
um in regard to this area too, like I feel um what is a not on my watch? With not on my watch is like it's the clarity piece, and it's moving through those emotional barriers, right?
Mm.
Because there has been people for me that have either talked me down or talked me up, whatever it is I needed at the time to move me into action, right?
Yeah.
And I have some very significant, critical relationships in my life of people that have provided that for me. So as my, my way to pay it forward is how can I show up for people that way? Because again, going back to my story and the themes, the resources, right?
Yeah.
I didn't
That's huge.
understand when I was in grade one, when I was being bullied every day,
Mm.
self-preservation. I didn't realize that my dad was actually a resource. I
Yeah.
didn't know he was a resource because I chose, I was too young to really know this at the time, but I wasn't able to take action. My only way to take action was to try to skip school that day. And of which my mom found me, and then they just took me to school, and that was it. But that was the first little lesson, right? So, but that when I look back, you're like, wow, I just had so many resources around me, I just didn't know how to tap into them, right?
Yeah.
So it's something for everyone to think about too. Is like, what do you stand for? And this is
Yeah.
gonna bring us into the take home of this conversation and fun homework, I like to call it, that we're gonna play around with this week is
Yeah.
um, and Jody, just add in whatever tips or ideas that you have around these areas. Is
Yeah.
the first one is honing in on your story or revisiting your story this
Yeah.
week, and maybe pick a chapter. Just allow yourself a journal session for a half an hour and go, if I were to pick a chapter today to read in my book of my life, which one would it be? And what would be the critical challenge or problem that I was needing to solve at the time?
Yeah.
And how did it play out? And if I were to capture the essence of that chapter, what would it be? Right? So that's the first one. What else comes up for you as part of the story writing part?
Um, just if you're not sure what it should be, just start with sort of a chronological list
Yeah, yeah.
of what has happened to you in the last 20 years or 15 years or whatever it is.
Mhm.
And just start with a bit of a chronological list, and you'll start to go, oh, yeah, this happened. Oh, yeah, that happened. I remember this happened. This came up, right? And then you'll start to see where the story comes from, right? Like, just like I went from this morning being like, I have nothing. And then
Yeah.
like, wait a second. Like, I started this business with group coaching on purpose because I was burnt out from one-to-one, my first business. Like, that's the story, right?
Yeah.
You'll see that
Yeah.
it will come, but just start with like the chronological list, and that I think that will help.
Yeah, another tip would be when I was working, whenever I've been working in this space with one-to-one people, I would ask them, the problem they're dealing with at the time, what does it feel like right now? And then I'll
Mm,
say, where in your life in the past has this felt this way before?
Get
Oh,
that.
this totally feels like high school right now. It totally feels like grade nine, grade 10 when I was at this party and da 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 and all. Okay,
Yeah.
there's a lesson. Let's start with that chapter.
Yeah.
Let's start with that chapter, right? So sometimes again, life is the content mirroring back to us what we need to know now and revisit again so we can upgrade it and change the program, right? So the second one is for the homework is the second one is what is your unique method of
Mm-hmm.
delivery? So, like I said before, there's millions of coaches out there that are also niching on the same thing you're niching on.
Yes.
Maybe even they're all specifically niching on the exact same thing, right? But only you have a unique method of delivering it and showing up a certain way and being a certain way, right?
Yeah.
So what is that? How would you describe that? And what is your, think of it as your superpower method, right? Of how you deliver it, but also importantly, not just how you deliver it, but how you could possibly teach it. That's a
Yeah.
pretty significant because that might, for a lot of us as coaches, not only coaching clients, but potentially coaching coaches
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
of our method, right?
Yeah. Just to,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead. I was gonna say, just to give you guys an example, like
Mm.
in the way that you deliver, it could be around your framework, like the 3 or 5 pillars that are, integrated into how you get them from A to B. But it could also be things like what Brian was saying with the way that you deliver, as in simplicity would be one that I use, right? So one of the things that I hope that I am known for,
Mhm.
that a lot of people will say to me, is that I keep things simple, right? I don't overcomplicate things. I make it easy for people to understand. So that is a unique method for me of how I deliver my content and my steps and all that stuff, is that it's really simple, it's easy to follow, it's not complicated, you know, that kind of thing. So you can also think about the way that you are being actually and
Yeah.
how you deliver it. And then the pillars is sort of more about the content, but those pieces both exist in this unique method.
Yeah, I think one thing that you're asking too, like what is my I don't know what my method is or whatever, but I think for you as well, understanding you, understanding who's shown up in your space in the past. Um, there's a lot of people that are really scrambly sometimes that come into this entrepreneurial space, but specifically to you.
Yeah,
And you have this ability to go into the weeds of that or the mess of that and pull out the one thing and very simply go,
this.
do this first. Right?
Yeah.
You did that for me when I first started working with you. I was like, I don't even know what to do. Like everything seems so confusing. I don't know how to do this like email list thing and this techie thing or whatever. And you said, Brian, just reach out to 5 people a day.
Yeah,
Start with
I
that.
remember that.
Create the situation where you have all these people now that are in your world,
Yeah,
and now you have to start communicating with them. Let's
yeah,
get those people first.
yeah,
Start with that, right?
yeah,
So a way to just kind of make it so simple and just give you one step,
yeah.
right?
Thank you.
Um, yes, so the final part, we had a little fun with ChatGPT with this. But when I create the templates for some of these things, and then we have our discussion and all that stuff, I get just voices. Once I get going, I get a voice that'll say, "Hey, Brian, ask them what their conviction is." Like, what the hell does that mean, anyways? Like, so I go to ChatGPT and I go, define the question, what is your conviction?
Mm,
Right? So
yeah.
this is what I got. What is your conviction? The meaning of this is like, what is the core truth or belief you stand for so strongly that it fuels your work, your decisions, and the way you serve others, no matter what? And in more
Mm.
simpler terms, what does your work matter deeply to you?
Why? Why?
Why does your work matter so deeply to you?
Yeah.
And what truth are you committed to delivering, even if it's hard, unpopular, or inconvenient?
Mm.
So I'm going to share these in the notes, but question is to ask yourself in your journals or whatever when you're looking at your business is, what is my conviction?
Mm.
Right? And play around with it. Use AI, play around with it, blend it with different parts of your business and see what comes up for you because these are like you could create, we played with this too before we got on the
Yeah.
call and there was some really cool stuff that was we were to blend and mix a bunch of different things. And it says, would you like me to make this shorter for Instagram? Like for your bio thing? Like, great, let's do it, right? So there's a lot of things where once you have the roots of what you really want and the essence of really what you want to deliver, then you can use AI to like really just put it all together, right?
Yeah. It was,
So yeah, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. I was gonna say, we've been playing with ChatGPT quite a bit lately. We're by no means experts in it, but we're definitely starting to use it and using it regularly. And, now it knows me pretty well. It's kind of scary, but anyways. But I actually asked it what it thought my convictions were. And it came up with five that are actually pretty bang on. I'm just gonna share them because it's fun.
Mhm.
The first one was integrity, but with execution because it knows all about becoming the CEO and that we want you guys to get shit done and that's
Yeah.
it for us as well. And then it said simplicity over chaos, which is totally true, simplifying everything. The third one was time freedom by design and not default. So this is like not glamorizing the hustle, making sure people understand like how to build out their schedules for themselves, for their families, for their, kids, partners, whatever, like all of that stuff in one. So that was also bang on. And number four was personal leadership. So this is all the stuff about, taking responsibility for things and setting boundaries and doing your planning and making decisions that are aligned and, making decisions based on where you want to be and not where you are. Like this is again so perfect. And the last one was strategic generosity. So um this was one I hadn't thought about before, not putting those words together, but I love it. And it says, you over deliver, but it's never random. Whether it's templates, coaching, or energy clearing, your support is generous and deeply strategic. You give with purpose and not to please. So that also like hits. So it's pretty cool what you can come up with. And anyway, I just thought I'd share those because they're fun.
That's amazing because you never shared that with me before we
No, I
got
didn't
on.
tell you
I'm
them
like, this
yet.
is great. This stuff is awesome, right? So if I were to leave off, in conclusion today, for everybody, it's like, first of all, like when we share this in the group too, throw in the comments like what resonates the most
Yeah.
from watching this. Let us know what resonates because we want to know that we're connecting with you and this is providing, something that's
Value for you
helpful.
guys. Yeah.
Right. And tell us more, like what more do you want us to sort of build on here? So what resonates the most here for you? Two, with regards to the homework that we shared, um, how will you communicate this? Whether it be your story, your chapter, the essence of the story, whatever it is, your conviction, how will you communicate it in your next post?
Mm.
And the third thing would be after you post it, share it with us. Like share it
Ooh,
in the group
good
or
one.
yeah, let us know, how it goes and what comes
Yeah.
up from it, right? So
Yeah.
um sometimes I send like really I get these really high, really crazy inspirations I'm like, everyone's gonna love this. It's gonna be like it's gonna go viral, right? And I send it out and it's like, okay, two of my greatest fans just liked it, right? And so like we want to not attach too much to that kind of result, But I find sometimes too that sometimes the way I communicated or the timing of it or when I shared it in the stream or there's a lot of different factors.
Yeah.
Um, it just didn't land for them. The other thing too is it could be ahead of its time, right? Because what you've been up to lately, they might resonate with, and then you lay this new thing down, and it's like it's going to take a little while for them to catch up to that story. So don't
Yeah.
get what I'm saying is don't get frustrated or whatever if nothing happens. But I'm just curious. I just want to curious what will bring out that passion and excitement, and how it will show up in the way you write or communicate or
Yeah.
post or what pictures you might choose or and let's just have some fun with this and share it with each other.
Yeah, I love that. Let's just get it out there. And also remember, you guys were doing the May challenge this month. And so all of the engagement, all the posts, all the comments, all the stuff that you're sharing, we really want to see that from you guys. You guys have the opportunity to win some calls or win a coupon code for any of the programs that we're running. And we really love to just hear from you and you get to also win. So jump in and put your comments in there. Let us know what you guys are thinking. Let us know any of the answers to the questions that we that we asked. We'd love to just hear what's on your minds. And have a great weekend. We'll see you back next week.
All right. We'll see you guys in the next session. Take care.
Bye.